Welcome to Hanging Out with Robert, that's me. This video is composed of things that I tinkered with throughout the day. For step-by-step detailed instructions of those tasks, you can click on the links in the comment section below. This video should contain tips and tricks of things that I've learned throughout the year. Now, I only plan on leaving this video posted for about 30 days. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much for watching. Wind is picking up. May not be able to record much if it's windy. First thing I'm going to do real quick is try to get this CD exchanger powered up again. It powered enough a couple of times yesterday to eject the CD cartridge, and then when I tried to test it for a function, everything quit happening. Plugged it into my car, the Panther, then Queen Bee, and it wouldn't do nothing after that. I'm thinking maybe my jump box was getting a little low, so I charged it up all night. Let's try to see if we can get that function again. If not, I'm going to have to dissect it to get my disc out of there and see if I can find another one. Here's to be totally dead. I checked the fuse is good, I got it hooked up the way I did. Nothing's happening, so I'm going to go ahead and bust my disc out of there and return this thing to the junkyard for a credit. 02 Volvo V70. Is this all-wheel drive? Yeah, it is all-wheel drive, isn't it? Oh, maybe not. Anyway, her battery was dead, couldn't get all the doors open, so here's where you jump these things. You hook your positive under there, you hook your negative right here, jump it, open the doors, whatever. So we're going to see what's going on with her tailgate latch. See if we can get this thing open. We're going to start the car by jumping it. Jump box hooked up. And it starts. Let it start, run about 10-15 seconds. Go ahead, disconnect the cable. Better to unplug that thing. So we're going to see what's going on with her rear hatch. Yep, with the more power, it opened right up. I got this top-done battery tester, charging system tester from them recently. They're the same ones I got that jump box from. So we're going to hook this up and test the battery, start the vehicle, see how the charging system is, all that stuff. Real simple to use, probably worth having one in your toolkit if you're a tinkerer. Volvo, we're back here in the battery compartment. Hook it up to the lead, hook it up to the negative lead. It powers on. As you can see, we have 9.72 volts. I'm going to hit OK. English, OK. In-vehicle test, OK. You could arrow up and down. We're going before charge, or you could arrow down after charge. That means the vehicle's been running for more than 15 minutes. So we're going before charge because this vehicle's been sitting. OK. Regular type battery. OK. Cold cranking amps. Select the input. Let's see if we can find that on the battery. Look on the battery. See how many cold cranking amps. It looks like it's 730. So we're going to arrow up to 730. Okay. It's testing the battery to see if the battery's any good. Let me, it says it's recommending replace the battery. So the battery may have a bad cell in it or something. We're going to go ahead and start the engine. So see if it'll start.
Nada.
It's too dead to start. I'm going to hook my cables up to it and we're going to start it. And then that we start the engine is running. RPMs detected. It's testing. Let's see what comes up on. Cranking low, it went down to 8.8. Let me get this where you can see that. Alright, let's see what's next on this. Charging testing. Let's hit OK. Load testing. Loaded testing. It's testing the charging system. It wants me to increase the RPMs. Let me go ahead. I didn't do that yet, so I should have had Teresa out here helping me. It looks like it's charging normal, 14.46. So, charging system good, battery needs to be charged up, may have a bad cell, and simple as that. So, if you have any questions, go ahead and post them. You can see the charging voltage right there, 14 to 14.3. This came from Amazon, so the link to purchase it from Amazon will be in the comment section. So I'm about to do my compression test. As you can see, my engine coolant temp is normal, so the engine's nice and warm. It's 204 degrees. What I'm going to do is open the hood and cut the fuel injectors off so that they no longer spray into the cylinders. This car has batch fuel injection, which means that all of the fuel injectors fire at the same time. So if I just simply cut the car off, then disconnect the fuel to do the compression test, some of the cylinders will have fuel in them, and they may wash down the cylinder walls, which may affect my compression test numbers. So it's best to cut off the fuel immediately, let that cause the car to die, and then open up the remove the spark plugs to do the compression test. So let me pop the hood and disconnect the fuel from the vehicle and let the car die that way. Number 2 fuse says fuel pump. I can do it that way, but I'd rather cut the injectors off. So let me go ahead and pull the relay that'll cut the injectors off. And on my car it's there. I really don't like messing with that injector because they have a history of having problems, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it anyway. There it is there. Let me unplug it. Tight in there. These wires have a history of going bad, so I may not be able to film it, but I'm gonna go ahead and unplug this injector relay. As I unplugged that relay, the car died. No more fuel going in there. I'm gonna set that aside. Now I'm gonna take a little break. As long as I do this within 30 minutes, the engine should be warm enough to give a good reading. Be back in a minute. Nothing that I'm concerned with. However, since I gotta change the spark plugs every 30,000 miles, I do it just for information every 30,000 miles. The purpose of doing a compression test is to make sure that the cylinders are getting good compression. This is a good way to track any wear that's creeping up on you. If your engine is worn, you want to go ahead and get rid of that car or prepare to have work done on it to keep it live and healthy. So let's get started. If you purchase a car that's over 10 years old, a car that has more than 50,000 miles, before you start putting a bunch of money into a vehicle that you may want to keep a long time, you want to know the health of the engine. On these cars, I recommend that people do this before they do the PCV job, and definitely before you dump a lot of money in it if you don't plan on replacing the engine or having a bunch of engine work done. So I'm keeping this car, hopefully for the long haul. I plan to put more than 500,000 miles on it, so I do the compression test, you know, at least once every 50,000 miles just to check the health of the cylinders. If you're doing a compression test on your car, you want to make sure you know what the standard numbers are. For my vehicle, the compression number should be between 156 and 186 psi. Your car may be different. If this car was not turbo, those numbers would be 186 to 206. So you need to know what your numbers are. Actually, I think it's 216. At any rate, I recently replaced the cylinder head on this one. so the valve should be sealing nice and good. But if you have a situation where you're having a misfire or something like that, you may want to check compression to see if you have a burnt valve or something along those lines. If the car has burned a valve, you'll probably have zero compression in that cylinder. So I'm just doing it just for general information for myself. You warm the engine up to operating temperature. You cut the fuel off so that the car shuts itself off being starved of fuel. That way you hopefully won't have any fuel in the cylinders. If there's fuel left in the cylinders when you turn the car off, that may wash the cylinder down and give you bad compression numbers. You want to cut off all spark, so you want to disconnect the fuse or the ignition coil or whatever to shut your spark off. And you want to shut off all fuel because you don't want fuel spraying around in the cylinders. Then you remove the spark plugs. You put a compression tester in them one by one. It's good to use a battery booster box or a charging system on there so that you don't run the battery down and the engine cranks nice and strong. Put the gauge in there, crank it about 8 revolutions so that you know that the numbers are as high as they'll be. You want to hold your gas pedal all the way down while you're cranking it, and that should give you the compression number for each cylinder. I drove this car here. The engine's nice and warm. I disconnected the fuel injector system by unplugging the relay. Next, I'm going to disconnect the coil, take the cover off, remove the spark plugs, put the compression gauge in there, and go ahead and check the number 1 cylinder. I may also put my booster box on my battery just to give it a little bit more help. Here are my spark plugs. They got about 40,000 miles on them. Probably got another 10 or so left. But I drive too much to be messing around wearing my spark plugs down to nothing. So I'm going to replace them with new ones. Someone's welcome to these if they like them. I'm done with them. I have my relay pull for my injectors. They won't pulse. I'm going to go ahead and pull my fuse number 2 for my fuel pump. It shouldn't run. And I disconnected the wire leading to my coil so it doesn't fire my spark plugs. I have my compression tester screwed into number 1. All my spark plugs removed. See if we can get a reading on that. I'm going to hook up my jump box on my battery and go ahead and crank away. Do not hook my jump box up, but I just wanted to make sure I was not depleting my battery. I have a good strong battery, and this is the first time that I pulled the injector relay to make sure I don't have any fuel in the cylinders. A time or two in the past I've gotten a low number on a cylinder or two, and then the next time I check it, it was up. That's the only explanation I have, is that I didn't know to kill the car by starving it of gas. So here we go. All the way down on the gas, the car's in neutral. Now I'm going to crank it so that the engine makes a noise 8 times. That's 8. Let's go see what the number is. One cylinder is lower than I expected. It's at, looks like 135. Let's go ahead and check the next cylinder. I push in that button, bleed the pressure off the gauge. Now I'm going to move it over to number 2. A hot, dry test. No oil in the cylinders and the engine's hot. I'm at watt. Alright, let me go check the second cylinder. The second cylinder is 130. Now I'm going to go ahead and check the other 3. And sometimes you have a gauge that reads low. The best way to know that is to check it wet. Also, you want your numbers to be 15% of each other. So if you got a 150 number, you don't want any number really to be over 165 or under 135. So far I'm within the 15% rule, and I'm going to go ahead and keep going across. Actually, that quote I gave you is a little off. You can use a calculator, but you do want all your cylinders to be within 15%. Get all 5 cylinders. I got 135, 130, 135, 135, and a 130. As you can see, the gauge will hold the pressure until you hit the release button. So I'm going to grab the compression gauge from the shop, probably a higher quality, more expensive gauge, to check my number 1 cylinder or 2 cylinder with it, since it was 130, so you can see what it reads on that gauge. But all of them are within 5%, so the engine's probably good and strong. Let me grab that gauge. If your numbers appear to be low and you want to check for piston wear, grab some oil, get about a cap full of it, pour it down into the cylinder hole, try to make sure it goes all the way down into the cylinder, and then give it about 2 minutes, check the compression again, see if the compression jumps. You can crank it a few times before you check it. Make sure that the oil gets around the cylinder, and that way you can do a dry test versus a wet test. The wet test, it should jump up to the highest possible number if you have a little bit of piston ring wear. So if my compression numbers should be between 156 and 186, with this cylinder wet, it should jump up to 186. If it only jumps up to 146, I know the gauge is reading low. The 3 primary reasons you want to do a compression test is: number 1, you're checking for engine wear; number 2, you're checking for troubleshooting misfire and stuff like that, like a burnt valve; number 3, you're checking for a blown head gasket. There's been times where I've checked cars with a blown head gasket, and I pulled the spark plugs out, cranked the engine, and see coolant blow up out of the spark plug hole. So let me let this sit another minute, and then I'll check it wet. With the cylinder wet, I only got 160, and I was at 130. So if I did the swing on it, these cylinders are probably good. They're probably around 155, and this gauge is probably reading at least 20 psi low, maybe 25. Some compression gauges you look at, there's a red range, say from 0 to up about 85. Then there's a yellow range from 85 to 100, and then over 100 is green, because normally you don't have a misfire unless you're around 90 psi or less. So the best way to test the accuracy of the gauge is to wet the cylinder, do another test. It should go all the way up to your 186 number, or whatever your highest compression number is supposed to be. On the timing belt and the idler roller on the Panther, I'm going to line up the timing, and I noticed that it's nice and dry down here since I did that crank seal. So glad about that. Last time I put a cheat mark right there, so now I see my timing is on. I'll go ahead and take the serpentine belt off, bracket out of the way, top cover off, take the belt, cut it off, keep rolling. The junkyard tensioner is dry. I'm going to grab my clamp, compress that, and pin it. There you have it, the proper way to remove a timing belt. Still no cracks, but hey, I like a new belt. A little bit of wear on it. After compressed and pinned, good to go for another 70,000. Release the tension from the tensioner, snap the pin in, roll the timing around. I'm good to go. Time to torque the spark plugs in, crank the car, and watch how the belt tracks. Because I'm pretty sure I torqued these down already. I started the car. It cranked up, everything was tracking straight. I cleaned up all the oil, off of the top of the engine. Normal for oil to be up there. I torqued my spark plugs, put them back together. Now I'm going to put my serpentine belt stuff on after I put that guard on the bottom of the timing belt. And it's getting pretty windy, so I'm going to hurry up, wrap this up. Done and ready to go. I did the belt, the idler, and of course the tensioner a few weeks ago. 370,000 miles, February 27th, 2018. Now I cleaned the spot right here under the hood where I'm going to put this, because it doesn't stick good to these plastic covers. And this never seems to be a good smooth surface either. I could put it here on the strut tower, a little bit tucked down there, but I'm going to put it right here, see how it lasts. We have it. It's outside of the seal area, so it should be good, so I don't forget this time. 23.2 miles to the gallon at 26 miles an hour. We're going to reset those, see if I get better gas mileage with new plugs. Probably won't. If you feel that this information was useful, please like it and share it with your social media friends. You can subscribe to my channel so that you will get notifications of future videos that I post. You can follow me on Twitter, and if you need to contact me directly, please visit my website. And if you have any questions, leave them below, and someone or myself will reply to them. Again, thank you very much for watching.